people, if they were thinking about going to university, would be tempted to vote Labour if they had been offered £27,000 for nothing. And I don't think a way forward for a party is to be sectarian, to appeal to particular segments of society. Talking about young people in general, the question should not really be what can the government do for them, or indeed any other section, but rather what they can do for the country, to quote So I want us to have general policies that are strong and virtuous, and that is how I want us to attract the young and indeed the old too.
Thank you, Aidan. Somebody else? David, David, fine, you're into your 7th. We've gone over the 6th. A couple have to catch up. But let's go on. You're on credit.
UKIP in Scotland have more UKIP young kippers to old kippers, percentage-wise, than any other part of the UK. And we attract them because of our libertarian agenda, unashamedly libertarian. That's what young people want. They want something to believe in. They also want a job. And that's what we also stress. We don't want open door immigration, so anybody can come into the country and take away their jobs. We also want to make sure that they are taught the right things in schools. As I said before, we want to teach commerce in schools. If young people can go out of school, they can't find a job, go build a job, make a job. I did it, so did many other people. Many of you in this room did it. So why not help them to do that, give them the education they require in commerce and business, and let's see all those little buds grow into big flowers.
Thank you, David. Ben Walker. Ben. Young people. Yep.
Question more about our party than young people.
Yes. How do you attract people? Yes.
Right. So the truth of the matter is, for years UKIP have loved these little meetings with loads of people sat round, chatting for 2.5 hours, pouring tips off each other. Right? That's the truth of the matter. We're never ever going to engage young people like that. Okay?
Yeah.
We need to what we've done also as a party is we've suppressed talent. Okay? That's got to stop. And again, I go back. It's about our structure. So we do need to do things like John's talking about. Let's embrace all the technology that's out there, which young people can just use so easily. You know, much better than I, and someone can prove that today. But you know, the truth of the matter is, we must engage with them, and we must embrace the change. That's the only way we're going to get people on board. And again, to bounce back, voting reform. If I was elected, I'd want to work with organisations such as Make Votes Matter, teaming with students, desperate to change our system. You know, if we work with them, if we're working alongside them, they'll join us, they will. You know, if we can show that and demonstrate that we're a good partner, we're working for the right things, they will come. But we've got to change.
Thank you, Ben. Anyone else? We've got lots of new questions coming in, and some from the floor. Sir, you wanted to ask one? You've got one.
Yes, yes, sir.
In first, so you, Rob. Okay, go ahead.
It's not my question, and I'm a devil's advocate in asking it. Many working class people have left.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it. I've got a loud voice. Sorry about that. Many working class people have left UKIP and turned to Labour due to concerns about the economy. Would any of the candidates consider some responsible and moderate increases in taxation? Bill Etheridge.
Never, never, never. The only good tax is a dead tax. We are not the party to play this establishment game of hiking up taxes. Oh, you want something? Oh, I see you want a free jelly on a Wednesday? Don't worry about it, we'll put tax up, we'll give you all a freebie. That's Corbyn's game. We're better than that, right? What we're about is the way you get working class people back is quite straightforward. And I'm going to surprise you now, because you might not tell from my accent, but I'm working class. I know it's hard to believe. But what working class people want is the ability to earn and work and get their families some form of prosperity. They want to know through their own hard graft, endeavour and effort that there's a chance for some kind of meritocracy in this country. That's what the working class want. I sit in meetings where people say, I wonder what the working class would think of this. Ask them. They want an opportunity to better themselves. Don't patronise the British working class. It's the British working class who won 2 world wars and got us where we are today.
Thank you. Anyone else wants it? Remember, if you're basically agreeing with him, don't put up your hand. You're contradicting him, put up your hand, mate. That's how it works now. You've got your tokens.
I'm not in agreement either.
Well then, get up and let us have a go at you then.
Right. I don't see any need for any increase in general taxation at the moment, but I do see a need for, and we've been saying for years that there are many multinational corporations that don't pay the amount of tax that they ought to, and there are many internet-based companies that do not contribute to the infrastructure in the way that physical businesses do through business rates. I would introduce a concept of pay-per-click business rate taxation, which I would call virtual business rates. Now, it's fairly new, fairly novel, it needs seeking through, but the idea has substantive merit because it cannot be avoided, and it's a way of generating money. I'll tell you, 5 companies: Amazon, eBay, where are we? Google, Facebook,
Starbucks.
one more.
Starbucks.
Apple.
Not what's it called, exactly. Between them, on a taxation of this nature, they would pay an extra £1.7 billion a year, just those 5 companies. So, a way to get more money.
Thank you, David. Anyone else want it? Aidan, go ahead.
Well, I disagree with Bill only in the sense that I would dismantle the state gradually more rapidly than I think Bill. I'm going to disagree also in a minor, but nonetheless, relatively minor, but nonetheless important way, namely exemptions. There are exemptions from tax, and some of these create distortion that are very damaging. For example, if you sell your primary residence and you have not let it out, simplifying, you are exempt from capital gains tax. This has been true for more than 15 years, and it has sucked capital into unproductive housing. Were we to end that exemption, not only would it tend to reduce the price of housing, which some would argue is a good thing, but in a gradual way, over time, as people took whether to sell or not in the light of it. But it would also bring in £15 billion a year, which would not be a trivial contribution to the terrible problem we have that we are going bankrupt.
Though a bit of platinum from the nearest asteroid would help quite a bit.
I'm sure you're going to ask me a question.
Right. Now, okay, here's a difficult one. I've just had a phone call from Noel Matthews, who is the guy who was in charge of candidates in 2017. I'm going to combine 2 questions very mischievously. Please forgive me. Please don't chuck me out for this one. Will you keep, if you become the leader, starting with the chairman down, who will you keep on within the party? Paul Oakden has cancelled tomorrow's regional chairman's meeting because he's got a stomach ulcer, and I can understand why. I'm one of the causes. So, would anyone want to take this question up? David, you're well over. You're credited. Somebody else. Aidan, you want? That's a brave man. Go on then.
Yes, if
Who are you going to chuck out?
I'd actually like to start with the spokesman.
No, you tell you were going to ask that.
My feeling is that what we should do is appoint entirely new spokesmen. We should approach the entire party and try and find the spokesman from the pool of every member. I think the issue of the officers of the party is actually less controversial. The current approach essentially is that that's controlled by the executive. And if we have a new leader, there will inevitably be changes because when people become boss, they tend to sweep clean. It's often very stupid.
Who else will you fire, Aidan?
I've just fired all the spokesmen.
You fired all of the
I
spokesmen.
don't need to fire anybody else.
All right, thank you. Okay, anyone else wants to take this poisoned chalice? Ben.
I'm to be quite short. So obviously, if I'm elected, and I would like to be elected on a vote of change, okay? So if I can do that, I have a strong mandate to push forward. I want to rewrite our constitution. I think that has to happen. It's old. It needs to update with us. Okay? The NEC needs to change. That will be up for debate as well. So the structure of the NEC will change. The first casualty of my first day in office would be the chairman of the party.
Yeah,
you should have got it stowed.
Right, thank you, Ben, for that. The tweets are going out already. Now, here's the next one. It's very related. This comes from West London, West London branch, not the West London branch. And it's come from several, also from Epping Forest. How much dosh do you have, friends? Because you have, as the party leader, the Constitution precludes you getting any salary from UKIP. Are you already men and women of means? How will you support yourself financially as the leader of UKIP? You are unpaid. Who wants to take this one up? Mr. Coburn, you're still on borrowed time till others catch up. Aidan Powlesland, you are entering David Coburn territory with this question.
I'm a small-scale professional landlord. I have a gross income of 80,000. It's not a lot. but it doesn't take a great deal of
This is a 24-hour job.
I know, yes.
Good.
So
That's it. That's the succinct answer. Bill Etheridge.
Well, the easy one, and it's not what I think it should be a decisive factor at all, but obviously being an elected full-time professional politician who I've got an income from politics. But the point is, what we need to do is change it so that we don't have this situation where this question gets asked every single time. This is the third time I've heard this question asked in the last 18 months. It's not right. What it should have is a situation I'd like to see where members can actually do a performance-related pay for the leader. You know, there's maybe a button on the website. I've worked with John about this kind of thing.
Who controls the button?
Oh, well, the members.
Yes.
The members can press on it. You know, as any of the guys doing a great job this week, okay, I'm going to send them some extra money. Well done, performance-related. It's the only way really to look at it. You can't keep on having this question asked all the time. Frankly, if someone is poor as hell but talented as anything, I'd rather they be the leader than someone who's got a pot of money.
I am actually doing sensible things here. I'm just going to tell you that the one who's trailing right now in answers is Anne-Marie. You don't have to. I'm not putting it to you.
Oh, I can.
Have a go. Who are you going to kick out?
I'm definitely not rich. But I've been working for very little for a very long time. I live off my partner, and that I don't expect to change. I've been doing it as well for a long time. Because I do this for one reason only, for the country. I actually agree with what Bill just said, though. I do think that it's difficult. I would much rather a person that we have the best person and you know, rather than a load of money. I don't think we need influence of millionaires. I'd rather us get £1 from a million people than £1 million from one person. And the same applies here. We need the best person, not who has the most money. So like I said, I've been doing it for years. I can carry on doing it. I'm well used to it. And I know I'm never going to get rich doing this work anyway.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Right, we've got a follow-up question again, which is related to this one, and it is this is a difficult one for you, not for me. The party is severely in debt. If the party did not have donors who had promised not to call in the debts, we would be technically insolvent or bankrupt. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to raise money? And what assurance do you have that the 2 or 3 main existing donors think that you cut the mustard as a leader? Because if they'll pull the rug otherwise. How are you going to answer this one? Now, I'll tell you who's behind on questions now. Ben Walker, David Allen, David Kurten, and Marie Waters. Bill Etheridge and John Rees-Evans, you've got one in store yet. Now, I'm not... David, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll go.
Right.
Basically, and at this moment in time, there's absolutely nothing I can do about that.
All right.
Because if I'm elected leader, then the donors of the party are going to make up their minds. But one would hope that anybody who actually gets through this competition and comes through as a leader of the party will have displayed sufficient vision and forward thinking and an intellectual clarity that will keep the donors on board. One of my platforms eventually would be to change the way political parties are funded anyway. But I can't, how can I possibly answer that question? I don't know the donors personally. Some people may do. But there is a sting in the tail. Do you want somebody who has already the support of a major donor? There are clearly risks associated with that as well.
Thank you, David. The question, as I understood, related to how do you keep the party going? It needs so many X tens of thousands of pounds a month just to keep the office, the phones running, the staff there, the basic infrastructure working. Does anyone else want to pick this one up? Anne-Marie, and then David Kurten.
Like I said a few minutes ago, I don't want us to be dependent on on 2 or 3 donors. Now, I'm not saying any of this is going to be easy. They're going to float into this new phase of the party without any difficulty. Of course there will be problems and of course there will be issues. But what I don't want to see happening is that if I, for example, got the support of the majority, that majority be dismissed because a couple of donors don't like me. Instead, what I want us to do is replace how we are funded and stop depending on 1 or 2 millionaires. This is not democracy. Now, I got blamed in the papers for apparently bringing in 1,000 new members in 2 weeks. Well, from my maths, that's £30,000 in 2 weeks. What we need to do is shake of British politics, get people excited and interested, and we can keep that £30,000 in 2 weeks going and going and going, and then we will be dependent only on our members who give us small amounts of money but lots of it. That's the kind of party I want to see.
Thank you very much.
Well, thanks very much for...
Kurten then.
Okay.
David Kurten after.
So thank you for the seventh question. Yes. Okay. So I think we need to do a number of things. You know, in business, you always have people who have very little experience of business wanting to spend more money on this, that, and the other. First thing one needs to do is work out where we can cut money. I was horrified to learn that it looks like we've just renewed our rental contract at the cost of something like, what, £56,000 a year for Lexstrom House today. And this is because we have this obsession about unnecessarily using old school methods, doing things on paper when we could do them instantly and virtually free of charge digitally. Do you know, for us to change one thing in the Constitution costs us about £34,000. If we shifted everything to a predominantly electronic format and had representatives around the country who liaised with those who didn't have access to the internet, we could do it almost instantly at almost no cost. But of course, something else that I'm pushing is UKIP Connect, UKIP Direct. These are both ways of stimulating membership growth. I'd be very surprised if we implement them, we won't have at least 100,000 members within a year. A lot of money from there. Donors will like that and come on board.
Thank you, John. David Kurten.
We do have some very generous donors, and from what I know of them, they are just for the party, and I think they won't pull the plug on the party. We do need to talk to them, but they're very good people. All I can talk about for myself is whether I can bring in money or not. Is I am raising funds to actually stand for my deposit through crowdfunding. I don't have much money of my own, and so far in 2 weeks I've raised nearly £5,500 from 110 or so donors. Lots and lots of people I've never heard before who have given that money, just donated it. Many of those donors are people who actually, surprisingly, didn't sign my nomination form as well. So, and I've had emails from people saying, if you're the leader, we're going to join the party, which I think is fantastic. That's only anecdotal, but I think, you know, I would be able to pull in new members. We need to increase our membership so that we're not reliant on one or two big donors, even though they are fantastically generous people.
Okay. Thank you, David. Right, you don't have to answer these? No, we'll be clear. So far, Ben Walker is still behind, and David Allen one more. Now, I have some questions. Elizabeth, yes. All right, yeah, quick.
Okay, right. On the 26th of July at Havering Council, there's going to be a vote for Hexit. UKIP brought you Brexit, now UKIP's going to bring you Hexit. What is happening is that Havering is going to have a vote to secede from the GLA. Now, as a party, I support anti-devolution revolution. Do you? If not, why not?
Anti-devolution revolution. Okay, right, we'll digest the question. Do you want to expand on it?
I'll expand on it a bit
Very
further.
little bit.
The regions were set up by the EU when we were a member of the EU. We're now leaving the EU. Thus, the necessity of having the regional assemblies passes. I say that they're a waste of taxpayers' money, they're weakening the country, so let's start the anti-devolution revolution, and do you support Hexit? If not, why not?
Right, okay, right, we have only one assembly, we don't have anyone from Wales here, there's only one assembly member here. Do you want to be abolished is I think her question. So, in summary, do you want to take it? And Bill Etheridge wants to take it as well.
Yes. Okay, I'll start.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're doing some great work on the London Assembly. We are putting the heat on Sadiq Khan, but it's there. It would be better if it wasn't there. So, you know, if it was abolished, that would be great. London does need something, though, because of the complexity of London. Even when the GLC, I think, was abolished in the 80s, to the time that the GLA was created again in 2000, there was another body that was needed to be set up to run the police and to run the transport system in London, because London is so complex. Whether we need an assembly there or not, I don't know. Probably we don't need one. And certainly the new city assemblies in the West Midlands, in the west of England, Manchester or so on, is an absolute waste of money. And most of the people living in those cities don't want them. They're another level of politicians they shouldn't have been created at all. And that's something that we can easily get rid of straight away. I've only got 5 seconds left. I would put perhaps something radical in giving the people of Wales and giving the people of Scotland a vote on whether they wanted to abolish the Welsh Assembly and the Scottish Parliament.
Thank you, David.
Why not? They had a vote to instill them. Why not give them a second vote?
Thank you, David. Right. Ben Walker, you're using up yours or behind?
That called again, sorry?
Hexit is Havering, London Borough of Havering is having a vote, it's a UKIP-led vote, to leave the GLA.
Anti-devolution
That-
revolution.
That's
I love
it.
that. Let's do that.
Isn't it catchy?
Absolutely. What's wrong with that? That sounds fantastic.
Put a colour on it.
Once we're out of the EU and we haven't got our MEPs, you know, we've got that level of bureaucracy gone. You know, we've got a house that's actually making legislation of its own. We'll have MPs that are actually working in the interest of their constituencies. Do we need another level of bureaucracy? No. Get rid of it. Absolutely.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Ben. Right. Anyone else wants to do David Allen? Yeah?
I've not heard of Hexit before, and I haven't actually given it any thought because I haven't heard of it, but as a general principle, I've always felt that the creation of the Scottish Parliament and the Welsh Assembly and moved us into a constitutional areas of real difficulty, particularly with the Melodian process.
Right.
And they are, well, you know, there are 59 members of Parliament in Scotland, then you have another 123 members of the Scottish Parliament. There is no way that you can solve problems by having more politicians. We need less.
Yay.
So that's my general view on that. But I have to say, we are where we are, and as a priority, that's not it. The priority is to get a fairer voting system so that more people get representation.
Thank you. That's 182, by the way. 123 plus 59. Now, we could take a... Bill wants an answer. Yeah.
Yeah, we want to get Bill.
Can I?
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. Thank you. I'm really keen on this question. I like it a lot, and I'll tell you why. On that fantastic night back in 2014, I wasn't just elected as an MEP. I was elected as a councillor in Dudley. What's happened in the West Midlands and in the North West is that the government has put in place these super authorities, the kind of thing that we got rid of back in the 80s and saddled us all with debt. They're bringing them back in. West Midlands Engine, they call it, and Northern Powerhouse, catchy titles. What it actually means is the power comes up away from the people to these giant councils. The debt and the spending commitment come down from the government to these councils, and what you're left with is something totally undemocratic that nobody ever voted for. There were votes in Birmingham and I think in other areas saying, do you want a mayor? No, came the answer, resoundingly. George Osborne said, you're having a mayor. And the final part of this, these were European constructs in order to make the flow of EU money into the UK work more effectively. We must get rid of these things. Lizzie's point is extremely important. Let's have a devolution revolution. Yes.
Thank you, Bill. There's been several proposals for a 2-minute break simply so we can top up with water and other things. Let's do it. Yeah, a couple of minutes. We're just over here. Literally a couple of minutes. Thank you. Right. Now, here's the map. We've given an extra token to most of the candidates, to 5 of them. 3 of them are behind. I'm going to carry that forward into the next session. Now, the 1-minute things are proving too long because we're just not able to get enough questions. So if you don't have anything to say, no one's going to think the worst of you. You're just agreeing with all these sensible chaps and chapesses sitting next to you. So no one thinks the less of you. Let's come back in, even you, David Schofield. Ben Walker, David Allen, and Anne-Marie Waters are all with 1 in credit. Everyone else has answered the same number of questions. They've answered the same number of questions, but 1 fewer. Andrew Price, you will get your chance. Now, I've got a good one here, and it's a good one to kick off with. Which of Nigel Farage's qualities or policies do you most resent, disapprove of, or abhor? Which of Nigel Farage's qualities or policies do you most resent, abhor, or disapprove of? If any. Poison indeed. We've got 30 seconds now, and I'll be timing the 30 seconds. Whoever wants to do it, take it up. David Allen.
Right, well, I heard Nigel speak on many, many occasions. Over the last couple of years, wherever you go, wherever you hear him, he does it very well, but he says the same thing. One of the things that happens when leaders have been in the role for a time, they present what they had thought about and developed in their own minds before they became leaders. And it is a continuation of the same thing. Very powerfully said, great guy, voted against him, but that's the only thing I would say. That
is 30 seconds, thank you so much. Anyone else wants to pick this up? Quick. Ben.
The only thing I would really say is I actually rate Nigel Farage hugely. The one thing that I could say that he maybe got wrong was that his idea of we just do it, we'll find the money later. That was a problem for us. You know, you need to budget, you need to have departments within the party that have budgets, that have money to spend. And I said that was the only thing he got wrong, thinking that we can do it and we'll find the money later.
Thank you. I'm not aware he said it, but you may well be right. Good. Anyone else wants to pick up this difficult and dangerous one? David Coburn, was that you? No, you didn't want to put your hand up this time. Oh!
I think the sun shines out of his fundament. I think he has faults, but the things that he does well far exceed the things he does badly.
Right. Okay, let's move on to another one unless somebody else wants to pick this up. Anne-Marie, you've got one in hand right now. Let's have questions from the floor. Robert Anderson.
Yes. In 2008 we had a financial crisis, and what transpired essentially that the investment banks and commercial banks, retail banking, who merged in the previous 20 years, meant that we were over-leveraged as a country. Now there was a Vickers report that was published, and it suggested separating these banks so that never again will the real economy be affected by the nutcases who are working over there. And I used
Casino bankers.
One of them. Yeah. Now, we need to address this because we talk about, there's lots of great ideas here. The problem is without money we can't do anything. So Vickers has been put on the back burner. No one's talking about it. It's all about Brexit, naturally. What does the panel think?
Good. No more speeches, please, after this one. Questions, brief. David Kurten.
Absolutely agree with you. Retail banking and investment banking need to be separated. The crisis is not over. The debt has piled up. We have 6 times as much debt now as we had in 2000. The Italian banks are on life support, and they have been for many, many years. There's going to be another financial crisis.
Yes.
And if there is, it's going to be the mother of all crashes. And if we don't do that before the next financial crisis hits, the European directive that says that bank accounts will be forfeit and will have the same status as not deposits as investment, everyone's going to lose their money. So we need to do that, and we need to do it quickly.
Like they stole them in Cyprus. Thank you, David. This question came from somebody else as well, that gentleman's question as well. So, anyone else wants to pick it up? We've got lots of questions though. Lots.
Very quick. The biggest disaster the Americans ever did was removing the Glass-Steagall Act.
Yes.
And it's the same here. I watched this with horror when they removed the difference between merchant banking, which was all right for risk. People wanted to take a punt, but was no good for ordinary high street banking. And that's what worries me. Your money, my money, everybody else's money is in the bank. If they go, we all go. So it cannot be that way. It has to be changed. There must be an absolute big wall between the investment banks and the high street banks. Otherwise, it's a catastrophe.
Thank you, David. Now, if no one else wants to pick up that, that's fine. Anne-Marie, you're trailing. Next question is, what is the stupidest thing you've ever done as an adult? What is the biggest change you have made in your thinking since then? Pick that up if you want to. This question comes from Harold. It's fine if no one wants to. No one's made any mistakes.
Everything
David.
I've ever done and everything I've ever said.
Aidan.
Someone say I was for 1 year a member of the Labour.
Oh. Anne-Marie.
Yeah, I was a member of the Labour Party as well, but I don't. I've changed a lot since then. As one grows, one changes. But I don't think we should be necessarily saying that being a member of the Labour Party is the biggest mistake you ever made in your life. If you're going to appeal it, you're trying to appeal to the Labour Party voters and win them over. Same position. Don't insult people if you want them to vote for you.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Right. Here's one from very close to heart. I helped persuade Diane James to put her name in because I think we should put all our eggs in one basket. What makes you think you're tough enough? Don't Rees-Evans.
Oh, okay, all right.
I thought you were
Okay.
signaling.
Oh, well, no. I was just interested in your question, Freddie.
Right.
But no, no. Look, frankly, if you really love your country, if your affairs are in order, and you have this idea that your life exists to serve something, then frankly, there's nothing that can hold a person back. If there is a vision that inspires them, they have people around them who are supportive of what they're doing, and that frankly describes my situation.
So you're tough enough. Right.
Yeah.
Somebody else. Bill Etheridge.
20 years in the steel trade, pretty tough. Fighting an election campaign in 2014 that we won and got us into the European Parliament. Fighting a referendum campaign that we won. Fighting in the European Parliament against the most obnoxious, evil, horrible people from through our country. And being under attack constantly by every newspaper, and don't we all look at the Daily Mail? And still standing, still going, and frankly, throw what they like. If you believe in something, if you're passionate, you don't give a damn. All I care about is our country and its people, and I'll keep going.
Anyone else? Henry.
Am I tough enough? My God, I've spent the last 10 years getting punched from every which angle imaginable and kept on going, and I'm still going on now with very little money, with nothing but a belief and a passion driving me. I've dealt with a hostile media for 10 years and gotten to the point where they're now apologising to me for smearing and slurring me. And above all, I'm now standing here with the entire establishment of my own party actively speaking out against me, and I'll take those punches and I'll still keep taking them, and I'll still be standing here. That's tough.
Right, because the thing to avoid here is the Ed Miliband answer. So it's one of the things that makes this kind of thing easier to do. Because you do come into a lot of criticism, you have to expect people to criticise, is to be comfortable in your own belief set. And I'm comfortable with my belief set, what I would like to achieve, and the impact that I would like to make. So hostility is something which kind of bypasses you, because it's about your beliefs. You don't see it as about you. A life philosophy, I suppose. Thank you.
Right, so are you tough enough? Was that a yes?
I think.
Yeah, okay, good. That's fine.
Yes.
That's fine. Does anyone else want to take it other than David Coburn, who is already going in advance? Yeah? Go on, if you want to.
Spent many years trading the futures markets here in the city, London, New York, Chicago. If you're not tough, you can't do that. I also happen to do this job that Nigel's doing every single day in Scotland. We've got our own press, we've got Scottish Daily Mail, Scottish Daily Telegraph, Scottish, everything. And we also have all the television stations as well. So I've been doing the job Nigel's been doing in Scotland for the last several years, 4 years or so. So I've already proved I can do it. And you only have to look on Facebook, or you have to look on the internet. You can see everything I've done. So you don't have to guess, you can see it there.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Right, now we've got lots of questions from the floor. Julian Granger.
Thank you. Every party has people who believe that HQ wins elections. As a local councillor of 17 years, I believe it can take just a few hundred votes to get UKIP members elected and represented. Politicians reach people by addressing their personal and local concerns, and local government is less wasteful than central government. Quangos. So how would your leadership support local government candidates in 2018?
Thank you, Julian. Who wants to take it? Ben Walker.
So the absolute focus for us moving forward is you, it's the grassroots. So we shouldn't be thinking about MEPs downwards, we should be thinking about parish, town, district councillors. Once you've got those and they've got their own little majorities going and their own little support bases, you then build, then you win MPP seats. And that's the way that we need to go, from the grassroots up. I fully agree with you.
Thank you, Ben. Anyone else? David Allen.
Whilst if you have a strong local constituency association, that helps a huge amount if you have national support. But the reality is that our position in the country is determined by the national picture. For me, I would dispense with having a manifesto that comes out a few weeks before a general election and have a rolling manifesto which is always there, that is incredibly supportive for local elections, because then the candidates have something to talk to people about. Leaving it to the last minute and trying to get a manifesto off in...
Thank you, David.
And I stop.
Thank you. Right, we've got one from the floor, Lewisham. Right, now this is going to be lightning speed, so please focus. I'm trying to do it lightning speed as well. Do the panel think that the concepts of hate speech and hate crime represent essential safeguards for vulnerable minorities against abuse and intimidation, or are they instead an excuse for a politically motivated debasement of the law that has resulted in prosecutions being based on sectarian preference rather than on impartiality? Bill Etheridge, David Kurten, go.
I started out as a spokesman for the campaign against political correctness. Those of you with long memories might remember. Anything that changes the law of this country from being a simple, straightforward law that is equally applied to all is wrong. And if you say something's a hate crime and make it worse for that basis, no. What it's all about is British law, the greatest law in the world. This the example that's been set to the world being properly applied to everyone, no matter who they are, and making sure that's enforced so that the authorities don't fall for this PC claptrap.
I absolutely agree. Hate crime and hate speech is a form you can prosecute it and you can punish it. But we need to change the Equalities Act, which says that you must pay particular regard to people with certain characteristics. And that means that people with certain minority characteristics have special rights, not equal rights. That is wrong.
Thank you, David. If you're agreeing, don't use that your token.
Simply, freedom of speech is non-negotiable.
Good, that's it. Thank you. Anne-Marie.
The whole thing has to go. It's an absolute mess, an absolute disaster. We are all equal citizens. A crime against one is not worse or better than a crime against the other. But let us practice what we preach. If free speech is not debatable, then let's have it that way. And let's let people talk about a religion if they want to as well.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Let's move on to something more divisive, because we're getting the same answers from candidates. Please, if you're saying you agree, don't agree, disagree, or don't say anything. Right, here's a nasty one. What have your financial contributions been to UKIP so far, either indirect or not? This comes from outside London. It has. I'm willing to let this go past because we've worked this one before. Why didn't you stand, if you didn't, in the 2015 general election or in the 2017 general election? Paul Nuttall did give us a policy of stand or stand aside. This caused me some problems in London, but we're not here to talk about mine. Every region did, because the instructions changed midstream. Why did you not stand in 2015 and or 2017? Anne-Marie's, I think I can guess what you're going to say.
Well, first of all, I did stand in 2015, and I did very well. I came third in Lewisham, beating the Greens and the Liberal Democrats. I didn't stand in 2017 because I wasn't allowed to, because we didn't practice what we preach about freedom of speech.
Did you want to?
Yes, please. Yes. I stood in 2015 in Cardiff South and Penarth, but I didn't stand in 2017 for two reasons. One was that we had a local candidate who was excellent, but the primary reason was that I wanted to travel throughout the country, helping as many different candidates as I could. I felt I was more used to the party creating videos for 19 different candidates and getting several 100,000 video views for them. I think we have evidence that that was indeed the case. One reported to me they moved from position 150 something into position 5 after 15,000 video views.
Thank you, John. Right, let's move on. Let's move on to another question. What question do you not want to be asked?
The next one.
No one wants to take this one on. We don't have any leadership battle. Not with me. You want to answer it? Answer it.
My view is...
Answer it.
I have to be able to answer any question. The one that's just gone.
You've just answered it. Right. So any questions on? Right. Good. Now, next one. did you support or oppose the integration agenda? Bill Etheridge.
I vehemently opposed the integration agenda. I think it was absolutely appalling, and what's more, the timing of the launch of it didn't matter what else we said during our election campaign, because all anyone thought about was the fact that we wanted the state to forcibly look up at little girls' skirts, and it was a disgraceful thing. And when we raised objections to it, and I can assure you, objections were raised not about the bulk of it, but about certain aspects, we were laughed at, shouted down, and a small minority of people dominated the policy of the party. It was a disgrace.
Thank you. John Rees-Evans.
No, I also opposed the integration agenda because while it raised many issues that I think we should be looking at very seriously, I feel that if we fed all of those issues through a direct democracy system, they wouldn't have come out like they would. Unnecessarily offensive, unnecessarily marginalising, unnecessarily stigmatising certain groups and indeed our party. And look, that was the most prominent raft of policies we put out. And look what it did to us at the general election. Decimated down to 1.8%.
Thank you, John. David Coburn.
I wasn't consulted as leader of Scotland. We were just handed it. When we protested about it, the person who created it laughed at our faces in the European Parliament, all the MEPs. I think it was an absolute shame, and I don't see why people who have been involved in that should even be thinking of running as leader of the party.
Now, we've had three who said almost the same thing. Anyone willing to take the other side? Anne-Marie Waters.
The policies are exactly what were needed. This is, again, this insane denial that anybody cares about these things. These policies were right. The problem was nobody had the guts or, frankly, the knowledge to actually sell these policies and their importance to the electorate. The problem wasn't the policies, the problem was there was no courage or actually they didn't have a clue how to sell it to the public. That was the problem, and they blew it. And it has nothing to do with, they blew it. It wasn't the policy that was the problem, it was the people selling them.
David, No, my voice is loud.
So what she's saying is absolutely...
You've said it already, David. You're way over here. Yeah. Somebody else wants to pick it up. David Kurten, do you want to?
Yeah, there were some good things in it, there were some bad things in it. I was there at the integration launch, I was talking about the parts to do with education. There were some things that were going to be in it that were even more radical that we discussed and that didn't go in it. Yeah, so it's a mix. We need to consult more, and again, with policy, we did this as a party just too quickly, and policy needs to be rolling. We need to have a policy team that operates all round the clock, responds to everything that goes on for 4 years, for 5 years between two elections, not to come to a situation where we have to, where we're just making...
Would you say it wasn't your baby, this one? Yeah. Right. Let's move on to another one, unless somebody else has got... David, go ahead. Something different, please.
There are two issues here. I support the concept of integration in that's opposing sectarianism and isolationism. But I think what we're really talking about is how the party approached that at the last general election, which was an absolute disaster. I did a BBC radio interview in Rochester, where I stood in 2017. Almost the entire interview was about Van der Bergen. And it just covered up anything else you wanted to say.
Thank you, David. Now let's move along to something else now. The biggest, right, sorry, let me start again here. Where will our party be in 3 years' time if you're the boss?
I think we'll be in government. That's what we all want to say.
You mean the Parliament Act is going to come in?
I think there will be another election in about 2 or 3 years' time. If we get ready, in the last election, I think half the people in the country voted for someone that they didn't really want to vote for to keep out someone that they really didn't want to be in Parliament. Yeah. So many people of them want UKIP to be good. I will make UKIP good again, great again, and we can be in government. That's where I want us to be. We've got to have that vision to go forward.
Right, thank you. Anyone else? Ben, you're behind David, if you really want to. Let's get...
In 4 years' time, we're going to have an election in Scotland, and it will be proportional representation, and we have the chance to get people in. If we don't have a group in London saying stupid things about Scotland. That's what happened in the last election, the Scottish election, and it was disastrous for our campaign. We worked very hard, and it was disastrous because of that. And one of the reasons I'm standing, I don't want to be standing 4 years hence and have some silly art saying something stupid. In the manifesto that was last produced, we had 2 people, Patrick O'Flynn and Suzanne Evans, saying...
No, we stopped there. We stopped there.
We have stopped. We
are not going to have this. No, we're not. Thank you, David. Right. Now, anyone else wants to touch this? Where do we want to be in 3 years' time? Yeah? No, we've got lots more questions, so please don't feel the need to grab ones you don't really want. Now, let's save this one for a bit later. Succinctly explain the core instincts of a UKIPper that bind us together and will enable us to grow as a party. This comes from the chairman of the Islington and Hackney branch, who can't make it. Core values, core instincts that bind us together. Ben Walker.
That's very simple. If you look at our constitution, we are all supposed to be libertarians, which to me means that we are a low tax, small state kind of party, right? People are free thinking, they're allowed to sort of speak out. Debate that's not a terrifying word. That's things that we do. That's what we should be. We shouldn't be focusing on targeting certain individuals or targeting certain areas of society. We've got to be free thinking and radical. We're libertarians, and that is why I believe it binds us all together.
Thank you, Ben. Excellent. John? David. John?
I believe that all members of UKIP at heart believe in the concepts of genuine democracy, genuine personal liberty, and the uncompromising rule of law for all people within this country. Thank you.
Thank you, John. David Allen.
It's quite clear that the uncompromising and absolutely rules is in the United Kingdom as an independent country, and our ability to do well in any external environment, as we have done for the last 400 years.
Thank you, David. And Bill Etheridge.
Patriotism, a love of individual freedom and liberty, and a rejection of big state control and authoritarianism. That's not who we are.
Yeah, thank you. We're getting into really, really murky waters here. Would anyone, right, what is your experience of winning elections?
Right, experience of winning elections, a lot of it down to the fantastic efforts of Nigel Farage, who we all sometimes forget, but we worked hard around in 2014, elected to be councillor in Dudley on the same night as being elected to be an MEP for the West Midlands. We worked our socks off, we put all that perspiration in, we made a tiny difference. Nigel and the campaign made a big difference, but we won that election. I've also run 2 general election campaigns for myself since, and in the previous life I was a campaign executive for the Conservative Party running their elections in the West Midlands. I know a lot about how to run elections.
Thank you, Bill. David Coburn.
I ran several referendums in Scotland, the one for Scottish independence from England, and I fought that. I also fought as on the television and on the radio everywhere. I also fought the referendum to keep Scotland out of the European Union, and UKIP in Scotland were the only party who were doing that. Every other party, Labour, Conservative, Scottish Nationalists, the whole lot they were for remaining in the EU. And it was just our people, 20-odd people, maybe 30-odd people, going about changing our clothes. We were the only people who were actually protesting to make sure we got out of the European Union. And I was presenting that on television all the time. And I also raised money for Scotland. And we ran our own
Thank you, David. Thanks. Right. John Rees-Evans.
Yeah, so during the run-up to the referendum, we were very worried that we might lose in Wales, because if we lost in Wales, we'd lose overall nationally by a ratio of 3-1. So I concentrated all of my efforts into doing what we could to win in Wales. So I recruited and trained and supervised 39 people to deliver 572,000 leaflets in South Wales, and at the same time made many videos that got about 1 million views on social media. And by the grace of God, we won by just over 1% in Wales and got 2-2 rather than 3-1.
Thank you so much, John. Now, David, yes? Something different.
Something different. The referendum which I said, 3-1. We did something different there. I wrote virtually most of an 8-page tabloid newspaper which was called The Informed Choice. I had a view that if you presented arguments in a rational way, then people would read it and people will come over to your view. I also did that in the Rochester and True general election, something nobody else has ever done in any election, and that is to put out an 8,000-word, 8-page tabloid newspaper as an electoral mailing. Now, there is a way to do that and get it all posted for free. And I think that made it simple because I saved my deposit.
Thank you, David. Well done in saving your deposit. Now, let's have a question from the floor from Andrew Price, who's been...
Well, you've got the quote.
I have the quote here now. I don't know how loaded this is.
I prefer to ask my own question, so...
Ask your own question, then.
If you could do a better job than me, Freddie, you go ahead.
Oh, animals.
Competition.
This is your question, yes? Indeed. Farage is clueless and cowardly, and this is precisely why I've always disliked him and his cronies. I've no idea who said this, by the way.
Jack Buckley, Anne-Marie's...
yes.
Is this my question is
this the right estimation of Nigel Farage? I think we all say no.
What do they say?
Well, obviously the implication is to blame that on me as well. Jack Buckley is free to tweet whatever he wants. I don't agree with that.
You sack him.
It's just work for me. I have a team of people who help me. He's one of them. He's a free person. He's free to offer an opinion on Nigel Farage if he wants to. I don't agree with it. I think he did that after the Sunday Politics, which I made my own comments where I said I admire him greatly, and I do, but I think on this issue he's wrong. I'm not responsible for what Jack Buckley puts on Twitter, and it's a little bit ridiculous really to try and blame him.
Right. Let's say the rest of the panel, you probably don't think Nigel is any of those things. David, you're completely on borrowed times, mate. You've spent all your coppers have been spent right now until we get a refresh. You're on 7 already. Now, next question. How would the new leader set about building bridges with the Muslim community and others, Chinese, Indians, etc.? The use of this word Asians is ridiculous since half the planet's Asian. So, anyone wants to take that one up? That comes from somebody who wants to be named. Sue Benjamin's in the Barking and Dagenham branch.
I'm already standing up. There you go.
Absolutely, you're already standing up.
Thank you, that's not how we're going to do it. I think that Hindus and Sikhs and fantastic people, they would naturally come to UKIP because they're proud patriots, British Hindus and British Sikhs. With Muslims, we have to make a distinction between those who are radical Muslims like Wahhabis and Salafists, and those who don't like this country, who hate this country and want to radicalise people to destroy and kill. And those good, lovely Muslims like the Ahmadiyya Muslims, the Ismailis and the Sufis, who are proud British citizens as well, who naturally are socially conservative, like I would take the party in the direction on, and I think they will come to UKIP as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave.
The way we reach out to every section of the community and every British citizen is to treat them on their merits and not to be prejudiced against them because of their religion, their skin colour or anything else. And quite frankly, in the West Midlands. I've got a little story to tell you. We won the referendum by a record amount, more than anyone else in the West Midlands. And I was talking to a Muslim businessman on the night when the scores were coming through. I was concerned. And he said, don't worry. And he showed me his phone. And he showed me a trail of emails and texts all across the West Midlands from different mosques, different community centres and different businessmen, all of them voting for Brexit, all of them patriotic, and all of them wishing the best for our country. They just want to get on with their lives, run a business and be good citizens. If they don't want to be, they get the same penalty as everyone else.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill. Right. This is a difficult one. The Evening Standard today reported that Gove and Boris are trying to crash EU negotiations so that we have a hard Brexit by walking away and reverting to WTO rules. I'll repeat that again. Walk away. Can those candidates who approve raise their hands? You're all candidates for vote. Excellent. Can we have £5.5 grand? Courage, please collect £5.5 grand from all these people who raised their hands. Good. I rather thought this was a rabble rouser. Now I'm getting texts saying we should wrap it up. How about another 20 minutes and then we wrap it up?
No, 10 minutes.
10. Okay, 10. Right. 10 then. What, now we've already done hanging, so we'll talk about guillotining now, because what do you want done with the NEC and its subcommittees? This question comes from an ex-NEC member in Switzerland and UKIP daily commentator. What do you want done with the NEC, if anything? Anyone wants to take that up?
Yes. Okay. My view is that the NEC is an approximation of democracy in much the same way that modern representative democracy is an approximation of democracy. There's no need for it. We have a means of expressing what is our will, so we don't need them to tell us what we think on our behalf. What I want to see is an NEC that is composed of various different disciplines, and when people apply to be elected to the NEC, they essentially apply for a particular job, and we elect them on the basis of their ability to fulfill that role, and that role should be with respect to campaigning capability at national level and the ability to liaise down the chain of command to local level to ensure that all skills that we need to win elections are present.
Thank you, John. Anyone else wants to touch that? Ben Walker.
Same again, I don't see much place for the NEC as it is now. So I would like to see something like regional or county chairs who are elected by branches take up a seat on the NEC. So they, you've got that local representation from right around the UK. So the NEC is understanding the voice of you guys on the ground.
Thank you, Ben, for that. Anyone else? Next question. David Coburn. That is going to be your last question then, though.
Oh dear. Well, the trouble with the NEC is it's just selected by 120 words or whatever it is, and a photograph of yourself when you were demobbed from the Navy in 1945. It is ludicrous. What we need to do is have an NEC made up of people who work for the party, i.e. people who have been chairs of branches, people who have been regional chairs. You must have been seen to do something first before you just get on there because you've got a pretty picture and you look nice. It just can't be that way. And there's no way of checking where anything they say is true. And they should be vetted in the same way that you vet candidates. Otherwise, it's ludicrous.
Thank you, David. Now we have one, that's the last one now. Now we've got one from our very, very competent videographer, Chris Mendes, and it is 3 years we've talked about. What's your 20-year view? Where's the country be? Where will UKIP be? If anywhere. Now I just want one or two of you to do it because we're running out of time. So anyone wants to take this? Difficult question.
20 years.
I've done it. 20-year view. Bill Etheridge.
In 20 years' time, this country will be the envy of the world. We will have an economy that's more dynamic than the whole of the rest of the Western world. We'll be competing on the international stage unfettered by being chained to the corpse of the EU. We will be able to have our own rules and regulations. We'll have a great justice system that we have designed that isn't beholden on judges in Europe. We can do our own thing. We can be the greatest nation this world has ever seen again. We can do it. We just need to believe in ourselves.
Thank you, Bill. These are the two very long questions. David Coburn's out. Aidan, you've been very silent. Commendations. Anyone else want? David?
Yeah, I've got something to say this. In 20 years' time, I think we'll be in a country, and I think we're going to achieve this, where we have a truly representative democracy with elements of direct democracy within that. As a result of that, the polarisation of politics and the toing and froing of ideology will have ended, because we will have had a coalition government that have been working and moving the country forward for several years instead of opposing each other for the sake of it. I think we will have rebalanced the role, even of the financial sector in the City of London, with a return to industrialisation. We will have encouraged innovation, inventiveness. You do well by making stuff that people want, making new stuff that people want, and selling it around the world. And I think that is...
Thank you, David. Thank you, David. Now, this is a yes-no from each candidate, please. A yes-no very quickly. Just a yes or no. Were the NEC to ban one of the candidates on grounds of claimed Islamophobia, would you support that candidate not being banned? I.e., would you oppose the ban?
Yes,
I would.
Any candidate being banned on the grounds of Islamophobia, one of you lot. Anyone, would you support the ban?
I would oppose the ban.
You would oppose the ban. Anyone else would oppose the ban? Then say yes, you want to oppose the ban.
I would oppose the ban.
I would oppose the ban, but I don't have a vote. So, right, David, would you oppose the ban?
I would oppose the ban, but it depends what else they've been doing.
No, just Islamophobia. We ain't going to do anything else.
Well, Islamophobia,
Alleged.
yes, but other grounds perhaps.
Fine.
I would oppose it. Islamophobia is a made-up word.
It's not me versus the audience or against the panel, but Islamophobia is a real word in the dictionary, and it says an irrational dislike or fear of Muslims is not the definition. It's a hatred and dislike of Muslims. So on that grounds, I'm sure none of us on this panel or in this room is Islamophobic, full stop. But it has been hijacked to mean other things, this word. So, let's go on to a difficult question now. Should politicians be held to pre-election pledges after they're elected? This comes from the City and Westminster branch. Should politicians be held to their pre-election pledges after they are elected? Politicians, presumably, Parliament, here, MEPs, anyone? Anyone wants that? Pick up that.
Yeah.
David?
I absolutely think so. And something that disappeared in the 2017 manifesto was the right of recall. That people should have the right, with enough proportion of the electorate, to sack their MP and to sack their representatives. That would make democracy more representative if they went against their pledges and the people could say, well, you've done that, you're out.
Thank you. Aidan.
I disagree. I think carrying on ahead over the cliff when the circumstances completely change is not the right way to go. And in any case, if circumstances do change and your way of changing with them is a betrayal of what you have promised, there is nothing to stop you being beaten in a subsequent election for that betrayal of what you originally promised. I think a slavish adherence to manifestos is just stubborn.
Thank you. Andrew.
I think it's very easy to say yes and very popular to say yes. But you have to be realistic about it and understand that the politicians often aspire to do things and really believe in things, but find themselves unable to do it when they get into the position. For example, Trump and his immigration policies, he wasn't able to do them. What I do want to see from politicians, though, is to answer for why they can't do it. It's not that they can't do it, it's how they deal with the facts. So if they lie and they treat the electorate like fools, that's when I want to see them be punished for it. But when you're not able to do something, as long as you explain to the electorate with a bit of honesty, you build their trust and you deserve to stay in your job.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Ben, you want to you want to answer this one?
Yeah, can do.
Absolutely, you're behind me.
Yeah, so, I think they should be. And, you could argue that the current system doesn't really allow that. The right to recall thing is very difficult to implement. But actually, if we changed our voting system and it was more representative of the communities than it actually, that the people there being elected and they represent, that would be better. So you can actually kick them out. You have more chance of kicking them out at the next election if they didn't do what they promised to you.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you. Excellent. Another one. UKIP won a historic victory 23rd June, but the battle of Brexit has not been won. That's obvious. In fact, we are probably losing it. What must UKIP do about it right now? If you became leader today, what would you do about it? Bill.
Brexit's being taken away from us. It's happening right now as we speak. It's happening by the big, powerful states across the EU and here. What we must do is how we got it in the first place. Pull our socks up, get ourselves organised again, become a potent force on the political scene. We only got that referendum because Cameron was absolutely terrified that we were going to take seats. We've got to make UKIP a force once again. That means a serious, professional electoral machine that can actually challenge and win seats. We do that, we'll get Brexit. If we don't,
Thank
we'll
you.
fail.
Thank you, Bill. Anyone else? Give it up.
I mean, whilst I agree with what Sil says, I mean, what we're waiting to hear is house. Yes, we want to become a political force, but we are not at the moment. The only way I think that we can do that is by pursuing policies within intellectual clarity. Voting reform is one of them that has significant support in the country. And we need to cooperate with other parties that want the same thing. Develop a scenario where we can choose, the system to go with.
Which parties?
Liberal Democrats, SDP, Plaid Greens, section of the Labour Party. If you don't cooperate with people, this will never happen. The Liberals have to do totally against it. There is a section within the Labour Party that is supportive of
That's it. That's it, David. Thank you. John.
Okay. Now, the big problem with our current form of representative democracy is that the government interprets our will as a suggestion. The only way we're ever going to get what we want, whether it be Brexit or anything else that people care about, is by pushing for a form of direct democracy whereby if enough of the population vote for something, it has to become the law.
Thank you, John. Move on to a very quick question answer one. Yes or no, coming from an influential London person. Not me, I'm not influential. But how many of you have read the Quran? Substantially. Right, just have you read the Quran? 1, 2, 3. Some of it.
Little bits.
Right. Okay, that's just for the benefit of the audience. I'm asking the question. Now, government figures show that £29 billion are overdue. 29 billion are overdue. I ran a small to medium-sized enterprise, and I was forever fighting big companies simply because they thought they'd screwed me by not paying, and I'd eventually go bust or something, and then they wouldn't have to pay me. How would you support the 30-day period for payment, and beyond that, actually the state stepping in before you nod so quickly, Mr. Coburn, the state stepping in into the private sector and interfering and enforcing? Yeah, you've had your chance, mate, not you. You can nod. David Allen.
Yes, absolutely.
You want the state to step in?
It is.
Right?
No, not the state. I support not only 30-day payment. I don't see why it should be 30 days. Particularly if many companies won't pay for 60 days and even more. It's absolutely ludicrous that large companies can put this pressure on small companies. So yes, I think there is a role here to make sure that large companies pay their small suppliers. It is a disgrace.
Right. Middlesbrough and South Cleveland branch. Article 2.5 of our Constitution says UKIP will put forward policies to diminish the role of the state, lower the tax burden, and reduce state interference. In power, what is the one thing that you would do, not waffle, to actually produce this? Article 2.5, reduce the power of the state. What would you do if you were in charge of UKIP? What would you do to pressurize the government or to put yourself in government to do this? Difficult question. Who wants to take this one? People who are owed, definitely Ben. Definitely Aidan. You're behind. Do you want to answer it? Yeah, go on.
Okay. So basically, I do believe, like, instead of cutting the life out of all the, the people that depend on the state and all that sort of stuff, we need to look at the state itself. Because no matter what they say to you, they've cut this, they've cut that, it's just lies. The fact is, our government can be so much smaller, and there are efficiencies to be made within the government. So day one, if I was head of a new government in that way, we'd have to look at that. We would have to look at each department and getting rid of people. Working for the government is just a non-productive job, okay? It can be much smaller, and we can save a huge amount of money.
Thank you, Ben. That's perfect.
Hello.
Aidan.
Yes, I've already said I would take 100 billion out of the welfare budget. I would also take 30 billion out by abolishing departments, including the very obvious one of foreign aid, entirely.
Thank you. Aidan. Bill Etheridge.
Abolish VAT, abolish inheritance tax, abolish foreign aid, take away all those departments, replace all of it with a simpler system, roll national insurance into income tax, make everything a lot simpler, flatter taxes, fairer, simpler systems. You take away the power of the state when you make things less complex. That's the way to do it. And that also gives a smaller person a chance. Because right now, we've got people working for minimum wage, cleaners, etc., who are paying as much tax as a millionaire. Why? Because they can't afford a good accountant.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Another hard one, and this is going to be the last or the second last question. If you felt that there was, and you had conclusive proof that there was going to be Labour in power in an election that had been announced, unless UKIP did something, would you merge or do a deal with the Conservatives or have a policy behind closed doors or not with the Conservative Party to shut out Corbynite Labour? Aidan.
UKIP should never merge with any other party.
Again, you have to deal with the circumstances you have in front of them. A sweeping statement that merge with, no. But if you are looking at a Coburn government, some of the things he will do will be irreversible. And if you can't fight him on that, you have to worry about the longer term. You have to find a way to keep him out now and then get back to basics afterwards. Sometimes you have to do what needs to be done to protect the longer term. And sometimes that means certainly means keeping Coburn out of power.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Right. Last one then. Is the minimum wage correct where it is? Should be higher, lower, should be abolished? Minimum wage. Anyone? Aidan.
UKIP rejected a proposal to come out in favour of minimum wage at Party Conference 2 or 3 years ago, and as a party we are not in favour of having a minimum wage at all, and neither am I.
Excellent. Bill.
The minimum wage merely helps and promotes companies to screw the workforce over. Frankly, you take all taxation out of those lower wages and stop the state saying what you can and can't have, but raise the allowance so that people on lower wages get to keep more of their money. That's the way. Remove the state. It's always the answer.
Thank you, Bill. I like that last bit, otherwise you were sounding like a Lib Dem for a few seconds.
What?
Can't have that. Now, Ben, you're behind.
Minimum wage?
Minimum wage.
Minimum wage. So, no, I don't believe in the minimum wage. The trouble with that is that you're enforcing employers to pay a certain amount of money, and generally all that employers then do is they'll cut the hours that they use people. So you've got to be sensible about that. You know, yeah, people need their standards and need to be looked after, and things like that. But the fact is, if we set targets for wages, we're cutting our nose off to spite our face and doing people out of money.
Thank you. I've got one question which has come from the floor, which is great. It's absolutely perfect. It says we must wrap up now. So, thank you, candidates. John.